How about some early 6-axle power?
Hi, I'm Dan Cortopassi. Today I'm reviewing a pair of HO scale Southern Pacific SD7R locomotives from ScaleTrains.
My models are detailed and decorated for Southern Pacific. ScaleTrains offers the rivet counter SD7s in two versions. The factory direct price for the DCC ready version is $214.99. I pre-ordered and got my DCC and sound equipped versions for $324.99 each direct from ScaleTrains. Since there are two locomotives in this review, we'll start the models at 200 possible points. Each model is packed in a sturdy cardboard box. Opening the box reveals an owner's manual with DCC and other information. A plastic cradle holds the model. The truck cradles sometimes stick to the model. They should pull off easily. The handrails on the long hood have foam protectors. These are excellent boxes that should do a good job protecting the models for storage and transport. The EMD SD7 was a 1500 horsepower 6-axle locomotive that was produced in the early 1950s. It had the same 567B prime mover as the streamlined F7. The road switcher concept was relatively new at the time. The 6-axle SD7 had better tractive effort at low speeds, and the body design made maintenance easier. Southern Pacific purchased 43 SD7s in 1952 and 1953. All of them were delivered in the SP Tiger Stripe scheme. Many were assigned to SP subsidiary Northwestern Pacific. 20 units were equipped with steam generators for passenger service. Though successful, SP's SD7s were eventually replaced in mainline service by the later 1750 horsepower SD9. By 1965, most of the SD7s had been demoted to switcher service and later that year were renumbered into the 2700 series. They were renumbered again in the early 1970s to the 1400 series. In 1979 and 1980, the units were rebuilt and designated SD7Rs and renumbered again into the 1500 series. SP 1500 was built in 1953 and initially assigned number 5292, then renumbered 2713 in 1965 and 1413 in 1973. 1533 was also built in 1953 and assigned 5321, then 2728 and 1428. If you're not familiar, there are two main spotting features to tell the difference between an SD7 and an SD9. First, the SD7s have a different style of stepwell. The steps on the SD9 are more like the conventional steps we're used to seeing on most locomotives. Second, the SD7s have different class lights. On the SD7, the lights are closer to the center of the engine and mounted in a rectangular panel. On an SD9, the class lights are more widely spaced and integrated into the car body. SP's SD7Rs continue to be used as switchers even after rebuilding. On the other hand, the rebuilt SD9Es were often used as helpers, on local or branch line freights, or in maintenance of way service. Many of the SD7Rs and SD9Es were used right up until the end of the SP in 1996. 1500 lasted up until 1995 on the SP. It was later sold and apparently scrapped in 1997. 1533 was retired in 1991 and sold to a scrap dealer, though after that it was apparently leased to the Sierra Railroad. I found photos of it still in SP paint as late as 2013. ScaleTrains got a lot of unit-specific features right on these locomotives. SP disconnected the dynamic braking on the SD7R rebuilds, but some units kept their fans. 1500 still has its fans. 1533's fans were removed. During rebuilding, SP also added sheet metal fairings called umbrellas behind the cabs. According to the information I have, these were added to stop water from leaking into the locomotives at the cab joints. Most of the SD9Es had these as well. These parts are different lengths on both models. 1533 was one of the units that originally had a steam generator. These units had dual tanks, one for water. Later the tank was converted for additional fuel capacity. 1500 never had a steam generator, so it only got the fuel tank. The underside of the gap area on 1500 is fairly plain, but I've never crawled under an SD7 to see if this is accurate or not. I found a number of photos of 1500 online, and as far as I can tell, the model is spot on. As it comes out of the box, the model best represents the engine as it appeared in the 1980s. Photos show that by 1994 the engine had lost its oscillating lights and emergency lights and gained a beacon. One of the photos I found of 1500 shows it at Watsonville Junction, so apparently these locomotives were not always confined to the big yards like Roseville or West Colton. The only thing I noticed is that in photos from 1987 and 1989, 1500 had a Los Angeles stencil under the road number on the cab sides. Microscale has SP decals with those stencils if you wanted to add them. I found photos of 1533 and it also looks spot on. Though this unit left the SP roster earlier than 1500, its appearance didn't change much at all. I found a photo of it in Turlock, California in 2013. Though dirty and tagged, it still had its SP light package and was still in SP paint. Like 1500, the only thing missing are the location stencils. In 1533's case, they said Roseville. I'm assuming ScaleTrains modeled the engines as they emerged from the rebuild program, so it's possible the location stencils were added sometime later. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one. The paint on the models is opaque and thin enough that it only slightly softens small details like the latches on the doors. The markings are crisp and most of the tiny stencils on the shell are legible with magnification. Apparently the small plates like the one on 1533 were often stolen, so they didn't last too long after the engines were put in service. The handrails are made of a flexible plastic that should stand up to modest handling. The stanchions are mostly straight up and down on my model when viewed from the side. It might be hard to see on video, but the radiator grills are see-through. The left side front trucks have speed recorders and cables, and these are slightly different on 1500 and 1533. Like most recent ScaleTrains releases, the wheel faces are painted. At the corners, the bottom steps are see-through. One of the standout features of this model is the airspace in the fuel tank area. Even on 1533, which has two tanks, there's an open gap between them. Compare this to the older Proto 2000 model, which has an indentation but no gap. In front, the engine has freestanding ladders. The numbers in the number boards appear to be applied under or on the back of a layer of clear plastic glazing, making them look like numbers behind glass. Like a lot of SP engines, these only have number boards in the front. Though some of SP's SD7s were delivered with rear number boards, they were eventually plated over. Both engines have the full SP light package on both ends. Lower down, the pilot has an uncoupling lever and hoses. The drop steps on the ends are operable. These seem a little fragile, so I'd be cautious when moving them. The cab side windows are positionable, though they don't always seem to stay put, other than sometimes getting stuck fully open. It's hard to see, but inside the cab has a complete interior. The cab has photo-etched sunshades, separately applied windshield wipers, wind deflectors, and armrests. Details in the rear are similar to the front. On top of the short hood, the model has a vent and whip antenna base. The cab roof has a nicely detailed horn casting. I'm not sure about the rust-colored exhaust stacks, but I don't have good enough roof shots to say for certain what color they should be. The fans have photo-etched grills and there's nice blade detail inside. The screen over the last radiator fan appears in photos of some SP SD7Rs. As with the exhausts, I didn't find any clear top-down photos of 1500 or 1533 to know if this is correct for these units or not. Underneath, the models have enough detail to look good while on the track. The wheels have the common RP25 tread profile. All the axles are powered and all the wheels pick up current. Both models have ScaleTrains knuckle couplers on both ends. Looking for a match on the horizontal center line, the front coupler on 1500 is close enough to call it good. The rear coupler is also good. 1533's front coupler is correct, and so is the rear. All the wheels are in gauge according to the NMRA standards gauge. There is no body wobble. 1500 weighs 16.8 ounces. 1533 comes in a full ounce heavier. I'm guessing that the second fuel tank must have metal inside. During the drawbar pull test, both engines started to vibrate and the wheels chattered, and it almost felt like the models were bouncing up and down slightly. I can't recall any other locomotives that did that, at least not as much, and it made it a little hard to get consistent results. The best reading I got for 1500 was at 3.8 ounces. It was a bit of a surprise, but the heavier 1533 topped out at 3.3 ounces. You know I had to do it. Together the model pulled 8.2 ounces, more than the sum of their individual results. I can't explain that, but I think both these engines have more than enough power to pull cars around in a yard. For comparison, the Rapido C36-7 I reviewed recently topped out at 3.1 ounces, and the ScaleTrains Santa Fe SD40-2 managed 4.2. I'm running the locomotives on DCC. Both have ESU LokSound Series 5 DCC and sound decoders. I haven't changed any of the default decoder settings except for the addresses. Like a lot of DCC decoders, the address is set to 3 by default. I changed them to the locomotive road numbers so that I could independently control both engines at the same time and put them into a consist. F8 toggles the sound on and off and also turns on the number boards, walkway lights, and a ground light on the engineer's side. F0 turns on the headlight. F6 turns on the oscillating light. Both of these lights are directional. The forward lights come on when the engine is set to move forward, and the rear lights come on in reverse. F5 cycles the class lights. They can be white, green, or red. F15 turns on the emergency light. F2 sounds the horn. The length of the toot depends on how long the F2 key is pressed. F1 rings the bell. F10 activates the brake function. The locomotive will decelerate according to the momentum settings programmed into the decoder and stop. Pressing F10 again releases the brake and the locomotive will start moving. In keeping with the prototype, there are no dynamic brake sounds on these models. F9 activates the drive hold feature. This can be used to simulate a heavy train starting on a grade, or a locomotive that is coasting. The model has an ESU power pack that will keep it running for a few seconds if it loses track power. Each locomotive runs very smoothly. They have no issues on Kato 550mm curves, which are equivalent to a 21 5/8 inch radius. With the sound off, they're pretty quiet.
Because it's my preference, I'm going to change the couplers to Katie's. I'll start by removing the screws that hold the draft gearboxes. With both draft gearboxes removed, the shell will lift off. It's a little tight, but it will come off. So this is what the chassis looks like. A pretty typical diesel. It's got a motor. You can barely see the flywheels here, but they are there. And then the drive shafts will go to the trucks. It's got a main board, and then the decoder's plugged into that with a 21-pin plug. So if you got the DCC ready version, this is where you would put a 21-pin decoder. So like a lot of ScaleTrains models, this one uses a combination of contacts and corresponding pins inside the shell to work some of the lights. So this works pretty well most of the time, but if you have a light that's not working, try pressing down on the top of the shell just a little bit, and it hopefully will engage these pins, because once in a while they get just far enough apart that they don't engage, and then maybe you have a light that doesn't work. If you have a DCC ready model, the dynamic brake section is also removable. So don't pick it up by that if you're going to pick up the model, because this can come off, but it allows access to the decoder without having to take it completely apart if you'd rather not do that. So the Katie's fit right into the ScaleTrains draft gear boxes once I took out the ScaleTrains coupler and spring. I lucked out and the Katie's came out at exactly the right height, so I'm pretty happy with this model. Maybe a week or two before I shot this review, I was having lunch with a friend and he was showing me the frame of I think it was a Proto 2000 SD9, but the Proto 2000 SD7s are basically the same mechanically. And he was trying to fix it so that he could rearrange the fuel tank area and make it so there was a gap there, like on these models that I'm doing in the review. And it's not a trivial exercise. It's actually quite difficult. For one thing, the motor that comes in those units is tall and it sticks down into the fuel tank area. And you can take that out and put a different kind of motor, but if you do, there's really not a lot of material there if you cut the fuel tank away to make a frame that's actually structurally sound. So, the fact that ScaleTrains has done all this for you really is a cool thing. If you wanted one of the SD7s that looks like 1500 that only had one tank, this is really kind of a leap forward in terms of, models and how far they've come in the last couple of decades. So I think ScaleTrains really knocked it out of the park with that. I know when these were announced, I pre-ordered them immediately. And I put my two Proto 2000 SD7s on eBay because I figured, well, they're probably going to be good. And I just, I have enough projects as it is. And I'm not sorry. These are absolutely outstanding. Also, the sound on these models is much better than I think comes across in the video. It's really hard to capture it on camera, but they are very throaty, kind of like the Rapido C36-7 that I reviewed not too long ago. the sound on these things is really good. So it's, ScaleTrains really did a great job on these things. So I think if you're in the market for some SD7s, I don't think you'd be disappointed with these.
Let's see what we've got. No deductions. Both models get a perfect score, making this the first double perfect review I've done. They each get a 100-point score and earn an A+. These are really nice models, and they definitely deserve a green signal.
I think ScaleTrains did an outstanding job on these models. If you're looking for some HO scale Southern Pacific SD7Rs, then I think you might like them. If you like this video, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.